ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
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 नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं
नारायणं
नमस्कृत्यं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
देवीं
सरस्वतीं
ततो जयमुदीरयेत्।
ततो
ततो जयमुदीरयेत्।
नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं
भागवत सेवया
भगवती उत्तम श्लोके
भगवती उत्तम श्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी।
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी।
Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 7, title Knowledge of the Absolute, and the verse number is 27. Ichha dvesa samuthena
इच्छा द्वेष
इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन
dvanda mohena bharata
द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत
sarvabhutani sammoham
सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं
sarge yanti parantapa.
सर्गे यान्ति परन्तप।
Ichha dvesa samuthena
इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन
dvanda mohena bharata
द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत
sarvabhutani sammoham
सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं
sarge yanti parantapa.
सर्गे यान्ति परन्तप।
श्री प्रभुजी माताजी।
इच्छा द्वेष समुत्थेन
इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन
द्वन्द्व मोहेन भारत
द्वन्द्वमोहेन
भारत
सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं
सर्वभूतानि
सम्मोहं
सर्गे यान्ति परन्तप।
सर्गे यान्ति
परन्तप।
इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन
इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन
द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत
द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत
सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं
सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं
सर्गे यान्ति परन्तप।
सर्गे
यान्ति
यान्ति
परन्तप।
इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन
इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन
द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत
द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत
सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं
सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं
सर्गे यान्ति परन्तप।
सर्गे
यान्ति परन्तप।
ये બધું આવું જોઈએ આમ નહીં તો.
Anyone else would like to read?
इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन
इच्छा
इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन
द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत
द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत
भारत
सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं
सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं
सर्गे यान्ति परन्तपः।
सर्गे यान्ति परन्तप। इच्छा
इच्छा
desire
desire
dvesa
द्वेष
and hate
hate
samuthena
समुत्थेन
arisen from
rising from
dvanda of duality
duality
mohena
mohena
by the illusion
by the illusion
bharata
भारत
भारत
O scion of Bharata
O
O
Sign of
sign
Bharata.
of Bharata.
Sarva,
Sarva,
all,
All.
All
Bhutani,
Bhutani.
Bhutani.
living entities,
Living entities.
Sammoham,
Sammoham,
Samoham.
into delusion,
Into
into
To
delusion.
delusion.
Sarge,
Sarge,
Sarge.
while taking birth,
while
While
taking
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 birth.
birth.
Yanti,
Yanti.
go,
Go.
Parantapa,
Parantapa.
Parantapa.
O conqueror of enemies.
O
O
conqueror of
conqueror
enemies.
of enemies.
enemy.
Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
The Prabhupada.
O Scion of Bharata,
O Sign of Bharata.
Katha.
O conqueror of the foe,
O
O
conqueror
conqueror
of the foe.
The foe.
all living entities are
All
All
living entities are
born into delusion,
born
Born
into delusion,
bewildered by dualities,
bewildered by dualities,
duality,
arisen from desire and hate.
arisen from desire and hate.
desire and hate.
Any Prabhuji or Mataji would like to read this page of the purport, which is shown on the screen?
The real
The-
constitutional position of the living entity is that of subordination to the Supreme Lord, who is pure knowledge. When one is deluded into separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by the illusory energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. Due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Anyone else would like to read this page?
Pure devotees who are not deluded or contaminated by desire and hate can understand that Lord Shri Krishna appears by his internal potencies. But those who are deluded by duality and nescience think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by material energies. This is their misfortune. Such deluded persons symptomatically dwell in the dualities of dishonor and honor, misery and happiness, women and men, good and bad, pleasure and pain, etc. Thinking, this is my wife, this is my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. These are the dualities of delusion. Those who are so deluded by dualities are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Om Ajnana Timirandasya.
Om Ajnanti
Om
Mirandasya.
Ajnanatimirandasya.
Let's all chant together. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam
Manavishtam
Stapitam
Stapitam
Yena
Yena
Bhutale
Bhutale
Swayam Rupa
Rupa
Kadam
Kadamayam
Dadati Swapadantikam
Vandeham
Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta
Yutapadakamalam
Padakamalam
Sri
Sri
Gurun
Guru
Vaishnavamscha
Vaishnava
Sri Rupam
Sagrajatam
Sagrajatam
Sahagana
Sahagana
Raghunatham
Raghunathanvitam
Sajivam
Sattvam
Sahitam
Sahatvitam
Savadutam
Savadutam Parijana
Vijana
Sahitam
Sahitam Krishna
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Devam
Radha
Deva
Krishna
Sri
Padam
Radha
Radha
Krishna
Krishna
Padam
Padam
Sahagana
Sahagana
Raghunatha
Lita
Sita
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 Anvitam Krishna Karuna
He
Sindhu
Krishna
Dinavanto
Sindhu
Jagaspate
Jagatape
Gopi
Gope
Gopi
Gopika Radha
Radha
Kanta
Kanta
Namastute
Namastute
Kanchana
Sapta
Gaurangi
Sapta
Kanchana
Radhe
Kanchana
Vrindavaneshwari
Gaurangi
Gaurangi
Radha
Vrindavaneshwari
Vrindavaneshwari
Devi
Vrindavaneshwari
Pranamami
Vrisabhanu
Hari
Devi
Sute Devi
Pranamami Hari
Pranamami Hari Priye
Vanchakalpataruvya
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa
Sindhubhyo
Sindhubhyo
Vaisvacha
Patitanam
Patitanam
Pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
Namo
Namah
Namo
Jai
Jai
Shri
Shri
Krishna
Krishna
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu
Prabhu
Nityananda
Nityananda,
Sri
Sri
Advaita
Advaita
Gadadhara Sri
Gadadhara
Vasadi
Shivasadi
Gaura
Gaur
Bhakta Vrinda
Bhakta
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
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 Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare. So thank you so much for joining to discuss this very, very powerful verse where Krishna is referring to Arjuna as O Bharata. That means he's basically from the descendant of King Bharata. And then he's also referring to Arjuna as O conqueror of enemies. So as Param Tapa. So with that kind of a reference to Arjuna, giving that element of platform where he is looking up at Arjuna, he's discussing this beautiful aspect of duality, that is the aspect of desire, something you like, and the aspect of dvesa, the something you hate or something you dislike. So this desire and hate is something he is referring to. And then Krishna is saying initially it turns into mohena in terms of moho, in terms of illusion. And then when illusion is something which fools you initially, but when it is proven, then it becomes delusion. So here Krishna so beautifully is explaining the difference between illusion and delusion. Illusion is mohena, which is starts from moha, from our liking or disliking, from our attraction or repulsion. And then Krishna is also referring to sammoham. Then it eventually becomes a fact, which turns into delusion. And that's the reason why we take birth after birth after birth, because we do not focus on the essence of what we got to do and who we are. So it's a very profound verse in our day-to-day life. In our day-to-day life, when we get carried away by our desire, ichha dvesa, by liking, disliking, and always we are in confusion state, in dvanda. Krishna is telling to Arjuna that human beings are very, very confused. They get something, I give them. They want, $100,000, I give them, but then they are not happy. They are constantly in duality. They are in dvanda. They're already always confused. And what a verse to dwell on this holiday evening, because this is a eye-opener for all of us. When you think about our real state is we are very, very confused. We don't know what we want. We sometimes like something, and once we get it, we realize what we got, we're not satisfied, we want more, or maybe it should have been different. And was discussed, we go after the honor and dishonor. Oh, isne mujhe ye bata diya. He told me something. Why did he tell it? We always dwell on it. Why this person told this to me? We constantly analyze, do postmortem, analyze, paralyze about why this person told me this. Oh, this person, instead of telling me this, he gave me a big honor. So we are constantly chasing the aspect of why this person gave me so much of respect, why this person disrespect me. And then Srila Prabhupada so nicely is explaining about why we are in a miserable state and why we are in a temporary happiness. And why does men thinks women are in a better shape? Because sometimes they have to take care of the house and do not have to go and meet the outside world. Sometimes women thinks men are better. And this comparison has been going on forever. And then Prabhupada is talking about pleasure and pain, because we don't know what is pleasure and what is pain. And sometimes this duality, this dvanda comes into our mind and we get very confused. And then when we are very confused, we are very weak. We tend to believe that as we are not getting somewhere near to what we are desire, because our desire keeps on increasing, our hate keeps on becoming very, very specific. So we do not know exactly what we want. And that is when we tend to proclaim that when somebody is weak, when somebody's condition in terms of stature goes down, then he tends to cling on to this. Oh, he is my, this person is my wife, this person is my husband, and I'm the master of the house. I make money for the house. Then we tend to proclaim that. And these are the dualities of delusion. So those who are deluded by dualities are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because in this dualism, when we are unable to satisfy ourselves, our liking, disliking, our honor, our dishonor, our misery and happiness, our pleasure and pain, how can we understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Actually, understanding Supreme Personality of Godhead is not at all very difficult. A very simple person can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the biggest of the learned, the PhDs, the master's degree holder cannot even understand. So that's the beauty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are people who are very rich, are very, very rich. They often pray that let anybody who is seeking richness someday become rich so that they will understand what richness is all about. Because when you are very rich, you are constantly under fear that your money is going to be taken away. So when this rich person is asking for a boon to the Lord that everybody else should get the money so that they understand what richness is, then the relatively less richer people thinks, yeah, that is a good thing. But why is he saying that? Why is the realization in a rich person is in such a way that he is saying, let everybody becomes rich so that he will understand the fear of being rich so that the money is not taken away. And every morning he has to look at the stock value and so that it doesn't go down. And so he's constantly under blood pressure, diabetes, headache, and he is never at peace. And the people who are not rich, people who are very simple in their understanding, I can't really generalize, rich people cannot understand, but often people come to Krishna for money, and it is very, very easy to think that someday I'll become rich. But once you become rich, then your constant maintenance of the money you have, your time will be spent on that, and you will never be able to focus on the real aim of life. And that is exactly the reason why Srila Prabhupada is explaining the importance of surrender. When you surrender, you recognize that I don't have to fear whether I sleep here or I eat there. This person who I have surrendered, the Supreme Person who I have surrendered, he is going to take care of me. So that's the reason why there is no duality. That's the reason why there is fixation in our mind about a certain path and about a certain process, or with chanting the holy name or being regulated. You're focused on dealing with that so that you're not wavering, you're not really confused. So with that brief background about the subject, let's try to discuss a little bit about this verse. This verse is very, very powerful. Krishna talks about our material desires, our ichha, our material, and our dvesa, and we are very unhappy about. We're constantly angered. We constantly shout. So this good and bad is making us so much fickle in our decision making and in our day-to-day life. And then because of this liking and disliking, because of our favorite things or unfavorite thing, we're constantly under duality and we're kind of chasing it. We're going up and coming down. We're going up and coming down. This up and down is happening all the time. And we are living in a constant mode of duality. Should I buy this or shouldn't I buy this? If I buy this, this is going to happen. So we are constantly in up and down in our thought process, and that is the reason why we are constantly being illusioned. We are marginal energy of the Lord, as we discussed. Lord has three energies: the internal energy, the external energy, and we are the marginal energy of the Lord. Marginal is Tatastha Sakti, right? So we are the Tatastha Sakti of the Lord. What is Tatastha Sakti? The energy which Tat means the bank of the river, where the river is actually touching the land. Tatastha Sakti means the energy of the Lord, where it proclaims that we are neither in the water or in the land. We are actually in the Tata. So that means we are, by definition, we are very wavering, and we are the marginal energy of the Lord. We are right in the margin. We're right in the border. We're right in the Tatastha. So that as we are the marginal energy of the Lord, we are controlled by the illusory energy of the Lord, the external energy of the Lord. And when this illusion turns into a fact, it turns into sammoham. It becomes delusion. And this illusion and delusion are our biggest enemies. And here, Prabhupada explains in his summary that all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. Mind makes you waver due to moha, the illusion, and dualities of dishonor and honor. And this place is Dukhalaya Shushastakam. That means it is a place of misery, and Ashustakam means it is temporary. Everybody is temporary in this world. Like we have a temporary parking space, we are parked in this world for a temporary parking. We are in this parking lot for a temporary period of time. There is nothing permanent about it. Sometimes you park your car for 12 days, or sometimes 72 hours, which is 6 days when you go to a far off place. And then when you come back from somewhere far, you take the car after 72 hours. Or you have parked in this world for 72 years. It doesn't really matter. This is aswasthak. That means it is aswasthak. That means it is temporary. And so illusion and delusion both are false. If you think about it, Krishna is telling to Arjuna, and Arjuna in this place is referred in a very different way. So when Krishna is referring to Arjuna at very different names, sometimes he refers to Arjuna as Partha. Then Krishna refers to Arjuna as Virakesha. Sometimes Krishna refers to Arjuna as Bharat, Usayan of Bharat, the Bharat dynasty. That means he is keeping him at a very upper platform in explaining about this verse, because here in the 7th verse, it's not the beginning. We are right into the middle of the core verses of Bhagavad Gita, and that is where there is an element of intensity in discussion which is happening between Krishna and Arjuna. And here we are getting into more of a technicalities as to the difference between illusion and delusion. So illusion, mohena, pertains to the mind, and delusion pertains to the belief. So sometimes the mind is illusion, but sometimes when the mind becomes illusion more and more and more, then it is stamped as a belief in your mind. So then it turns into delusion. So illusion can be said to what fools the mind, in the sense, sometimes you see water in a desert, it kind of fools the mind. The water may be there, water may not be there. But after constant things, like say, for example, you are in a darkness, you're in a total darkness in a room. So in a dark room, you don't know what is next to you, whether bed is next to you, or your swivel chair is next to you, or a glass of water is next to you. So you are in a total delusion, because and that dark room in our discussion of Bhagavad Gita is referred to as lack of knowledge. or nescience. So wherever there is sun, there is light. Where there is no sun, there is darkness. And this darkness is compared with lack of knowledge. And the lack of knowledge is a eventual perception of gradual illusion turning into delusion. So these delusions are things which the individual perceives to be truth contrary to the evidence. So we think we are the body. Actually, that's an illusion, because contrary to our belief that we are the soul, the human being thinks we are the body. That's the reason why you see so many cosmetic companies who are churning in billions and billions of dollars to make you look good. But actually, in doing so, they're putting chemicals in your body and you are not looking good, you're looking worse. So that is why this delusion is something we have to focus on, and we need to distinguish between why we should not be carried away and why being in the dark gets us to a situation where we are ignorant about anything. Even if you have done PhDs, double PhDs, if they put you in dark, you can't really come out. So that's the reason why your knowledge is very, very limited, even if you have attained more degrees, but your knowledge in terms of the commonsensical things in our life is very, very limited. That's the reason why this is an eye-opener for us to understand that who we are not the body, we are spirit souls, we are part and parcel of the Supreme. And when we are part and parcel of the Supreme, we would get rid of this illusion and delusion and focus on how to serve it. Once you know that, so you may be buying the car, you go to a car shop, you discuss 2-3 times or whatever, 10 times. Then finally, when you buy the car, you keep it right, you keep it clean, you keep it vac properly, because that's what you're going to rely on for the next 5-10 years. Likewise, when you know that you are not the body, you are the soul, and you have come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in spite of that knowledge, if we are not really taking this process seriously, and we are kind of getting into this illusory energy of the Lord and delusion, then we are not really capturing the essence of the beautiful verses of Bhagavad Gita. So you might have seen this. There is a knife, as you can see. It's a sharp knife, and it has honey dipping from the knife. So when you see this honey dipping from the knife, so what does the mind say? So the mind can go 2 ways. Mind can say, hey, let me go and try to lick it through my tongue so that I can taste the honey. And then what does the intelligence say then? If you are intelligent enough, if you can think about the ability to distinguish between right and wrong, you'll see that if you lick the knife, you may cut your tongue. And then, but in the meantime, the false ego comes up and says, you are a macho person, nothing is going to happen. You have been doing this forever. You have been playing with the knife. Why don't you go and take it? And that is exactly the mistake this illusory aspect is trying to prompt on you. And then you end up making the wrong decision. And that is why the transcendental knowledge we went through in the prior chapter is very, very important as to when we have to learn the transcendental knowledge from the bona fide source, because this transcendental knowledge is sold outside by anybody. They can say anything. And there, Srila Prabhupada in this verse, towards the end of the purport, is explaining that these ignorant people, the people who were so confused, they can't get this, they can't get that. After so much of confusion, they start envying the Lord, because they think the Lord is somebody who has been enjoying 16,108 queens, and he is a very karmic person. But Lord, based on the pastime in Yamuna with gopis, Krishna is the most detached yogi in the world, and they do not know that because they do not have the understanding of the knowledge, and because of the lack of transcendental knowledge, they envy the Lord. And this is becoming, that's the reason why when people envy the Lord, they do not want the Lord's image, Lord's deities, Lord's forms to be put in various different places. They want their own photo to be placed in there. And that is the reason why in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, in this age of Kali, there is plenty of these people who are putting their own pictures. And that is the reason why the God has taken a back seat, and the people who do not have any qualities, any of the 6 qualities, they do not look good, they do not they are not very powerful, they're not very rich, the 6 qualities of Bhagavan, but still they want. So this is exactly what Srila Prabhupada is saying. In this age of Kali, in this confusion in desire and hate, people start envying the Lord, and that is the reason why we are here today. So then, so that's the reason why this knowledge or transcendental knowledge is very, very important for us. And that's the reason why chapter 7 is titled as Knowledge of the Absolute, because with this knowledge will differentiate us between good and bad and good. And that is where Krishna is so beautifully explaining about illusion and delusion. And that is where, and how do you do it? He is also giving the solution in Srimad Bhagavatam. Savai pumsam paro dharma yata bhakti radokshaje ahetuki apariharta yata maya suprasidati. That means ahetuki apariharta. That is very important. Ahetuki means causeless. You are doing the relationship with the Lord because you do not have an inherent cause. And apariharta, that means it is unbroken, not flickering. So the supreme occupation dharma of all humanity is that by which men can attain a loving devotional service unto transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So with this, with this liking and disliking, right? With this ichha and dvesa, what happens is people are becoming very, very confusing. When they're becoming very, very confusing, okay, about their liking or disliking, they are becoming very, very flickering. They are becoming very broken in their relationship. And that is why you see there is a lot of divorce which is happening in this world right now, because people don't know what they want. People don't know what they know. And that is why there is so much a problem in this world. And that is why they're so frustrated that they want to get out of this life and get liberation, because they do not want life. So they're trying to do something which is religious to just get liberation. So that means to get liberation, you have to die, right? So you have to wait for 20 years or 30 years or 10 years to get liberation. But bhakti is ahead of mukti, because you can do devotional service and get bliss right then and there. You get the benefit of bhakti right then and there. You don't have to wait for 20 years, 30 years if you're young and you have 40 years to go before you die. You don't have to wait for liberation by waiting in the wings for 40 years. That's the excellent part of Srila Prabhupada's mission, as to you can enjoy by surrendering. There is some enjoyment with surrender. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj says, of all the people of getting big degrees, of doing some different maths, they are very, very difficult. But surrendering is the easiest thing. If you think about, if you just get rid of this, false ego from our mind, and just and take up the process, you can become surrender. So surrendering is not as easy or as difficult depending on where you are. People who are very egoistic, they will never surrender. People who do not have an ego, surrendering is the easiest thing. People have got frustrated. There are a lot of live examples in various different countries where, the life has taken them the whole 9 yards, and finally they have realized that you just can't. There is someone supreme, and we have to recognize and surrender unto him. Whether you recognize and surrender to him at the time of deathbed or at this point when you can do some devotional service, get some pleasure, exactly like Srimati Radharani, whose appearance day is coming 2 days later, in Radharani, who is Lord Krishna's greatest devotee. How to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead if we have to learn through the channels of the knowledge from the lives of Srimati Radharani. He has 26 qualities, 26 fine qualities. If you can imbibe some of these qualities or even 1% of these 26 qualities, it will get us closer in our devotional process, and we will derive bliss, and we will not stay confused, we will not be illusioned, and we will not be delusioned. So with that, I'd like to end here. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Any question, comments, correction? So let's discuss. Any comments, anyone? Any realization you want to share based on this verse about this Ichha, Dvesa and Dvanda, which is very, very practical. You see that all the time. Every day we are subjected to Ichha, Dvesa and Dvanda. And what a verse to really touch our lives on this day and make us realize about the importance of what Krishna's message is to Arjuna, where he's referring to Arjuna as a scion of Bharata. Very nice verse. Like to hear what you think and what your perceptions are. Go ahead, Prabhuji. Or Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad from all Gurus to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Guru
Krishna.
Maharaj. Prabhuji, I have nothing to add, but I'm trying to share my understanding of based on what you have explained. The way I'm understanding, I just want, if that is correct, then and if it helps our Bhakti Vriksha devotees. So delusion, the delusion has got a D in front of it, right? The way I'm understanding it, Prabhuji. I'm not trying to say that is what the etymology of that delusion is, but from the contextual, what I'm trying to understand is the D plus illusion becomes our delusion, where the D is a dvandva, which is a duality basically, which is basically the desire and hate. So it is the desire and hate when it is reinforced with the illusion, which is a lack of ignorance, we become totally deluded, and that is what our state is as of now. So why we are deluded is that because we have the desire and hate. So yesterday only I was hearing one lecture from Srivindam Das Prabhu, where he told what is desire. So I wanted to point out that realization, Prabhuji, of his, not mine. Desire is basically it is a unmanifested, basically it is your unmanifested, I would say, thoughts are your unmanifested, which have not been fulfilled, unfulfilled basically. Let's not use manifested, Prabhuji. simple terms, it is unfulfilled thoughts of your mind, right? That is the desire. And that desire, if it is fulfilled, it becomes a habit or a lust. Or if it is not fulfilled, again, it becomes anger. So what I want to explain here is that, Prabhuji, that D of the delusion is the desire, and that desire is because of our conditioning, as you have told, our thoughts. We are born into, as Krishna is telling in this verse, we are born into this. Right from birth we are, and we know why right from birth we are born into this is because one is a circumstance and one is by birth, right? So the one way we are by birth we are born into this is because of our unmanifested desires from our previous life, right? That is why some people like something, some people hate something. That is why there is a variation in, now everybody doesn't like the same thing and everybody hates the same thing, right? So we are born into it. We are born into it, and the desire, what happens is that the desire, when is compounded by the desire is compounded by the piety or the pious actions, that becomes our result of our desires, which usually, if we consume all the pious actions and all our desires consumed by the pious actions, that becomes, oh, we think we are successful. Again, the false ego. We think we are successful because the piety has helped us to achieve that desire, and we think we are successful. And if we are not successful, we go into wrath and anger, which all Krishna explains in our earlier second chapter. And that's where he says that when all this happens, we fall into delusion. Point is, Prabhuji, what I'm trying to tell is that what one is through birth and one is through how we fall into this delusion is where he clearly says that if these are not fulfilled, you fall into delusion. Your mind, your IQ becomes less, which is what ignorance you have explained, Prabhuji. We fall into ignorance, and the ignorance leads into basically the delusion. Just wanted to loudly talk my understanding, Prabhuji. Feel free to comment it, and just wanted to check with you on this.
Yeah. No, thank you, Prabhu. Exactly, and that's what Krishna mentions about we are born into delusion because of our prarabdha karma. If we would have, done enough to not come into this world and go back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we would have done everything right. The very fact that we are born here is there are some remnants, there are some lack of understanding, there are some anarthas which due to which we are born here. And so that's why we are born, and that's the reason why some people have less anarthas. They end up becoming very bright people from the childhood, and some people, they are very they create a lot of challenges for others. So because of that, so our birth itself is a fact that we have some remaining mortgage to clear, which is why we are here, and we are trying to clear everything. So if we are getting some sadness, some shock in the life, take it as if by virtue of taking the shock or taking the bad news, all the bad toxic assets, the toxic mortgages you had, you're basically clearing it by virtue of it. So don't take, if you understand that piece of taking up the sadness is clearing your mortgage, you'll never feel bad about sadness. That is the reason why Maharani Kunti, whenever she used to get sadness, she used to feel happy that at least to Rishikesha, she will be closer during that time. So this is exactly how Krishna consciousness, when Krishna consciousness people, they get bad news, they feel happy because there is less to worry about in future. So thank you for adding that, Prabhuji. It helps. Any other question or comments?
Yeah,
Or
thank
anything
you.
on those lines?
One more point is, so we all are born into this. We are born into this delusion. So there is no other choice. So what is the only choice is bhakti, Prabhuji, as you have explained, bhakti. I wanted to add that point. So the only choice we have, because we don't have a choice of to be born in a certain race, caste, creed, certain position with a certain body morphological structures. We that's not in our control, Prabhuji. We are born into it. But what is in our control is the bhakti. That is what Krishna consciousness is. That where here in the purport also, Prabhupada ji explains that we have our constitutional position is to we forgot our constitutional position that we are I won't say subordinate, Prabhuji, because that brings hierarchy, but we are the servitors of the Lord in his leelas, and so if we leave that to him, the outcome of it, but doing the endeavor by ourselves, whatever we are supposed to do in the right way, added by bhakti, that is what is the fulfillment of our life's aim, Prabhuji. So let the actions go as let all actions happen with Krishna in the center, and good or bad we don't know to analyze because everything is relative. Again, that is duality, Prabhuji, relative, and bhakti is the only thing which can make us transcend the duality.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Thank you for your note.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Any other comments or realizations or reflections? So I think we are meeting after the long weekend break. We have our core Bhakti Vriksha members, Prajapati Prabhu, Priti Mataji, so I think Shanta Mataji is there as well, and Niranjan Prabhu, Pratap Prabhu left, Puja Mataji left. So it is good to be back with all our Bhakti Vriksha members. We have been sharing this for a long time. If there is no other questions, we can end here. If there is any thing you want to mention, you can go ahead now.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have a small question, not related to this verse, but just want to understand. I have a small confusion basically. So I was reading Bhagavatam where actually the Vyasadeva, right? So he himself is the incarnation of Lord Vishnu, right? So but he has written many Puranas and many Shastras, right? In Shiv Puran he mentions Shiva is the the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Ganesh Puran he mentions Ganesh is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he himself is the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. So he knows that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But why in different Puranas he he mentioned different Godhead, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So with that actually like lot of people get confused with that actually, right? So why because he himself is incarnation, so he can mention the true thing at very beginning, but at end actually he has he written the Srimad Bhagavatam where he mentioned Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he himself can do that very beginning, right? Like all other Puranas where he mentions wrongly. So
yes, a good question, Prabhu. So as you know, Prabhu, there is something what we call avatar. There are different kinds of avatar, right? There is Leela avatar, there is Saktavesh avatar, and you rightly said that Vyasadeva is also a avatar where the kind of avatar morphs into a personality who has done enough work on that front in trying to spread the glories of the Lord. But there is something called avatari. Avatari means he's the source of all avatars. So all these avatars, you mentioned, there are many avatars. We had a slide some time back. So all these avatars have certain qualities, and based on that qualities, they have come. So in various different references, Vyasadeva has written about the glories of the Lord, and he has referred to Lord Shiva as Mahadev, right? Mahadev means he is actually he's the highest among all the devs, right? So can you see my screen, Prabhu?
Yes, now.
Yes, yes,
Oh.
Prabhuji.
Yeah. So there are 6 kinds of avatars, right? So Purusha avatar is Karnadakshay Vishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Kiradakshay Vishnu. So there are 25 Leela avatars: Kumara, Narada, Varaha, Matsya, Yajna, Naranarayana, and so on. I think, and Vyasadeva is actually one of the Leela avatars. So it's not just 10 avatars, as Jayadev Goswami has written. There are 25 Leela avatars. And Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, as you rightly said, they are Guna avatars, right? You're seeing my screen, right, Prabhuji?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And then there is Manvantara avatar, the avatar associated with the reign of each Manu. And then there are Yuga avatars, in terms of the color of the God. And then there is Saktavesha avatar, Jesus Christ, Narad Muni, Prithu, Parsuram. So they are actually the Saktavesha avatar. So there are many dimensions of avatars. So not all avatars are equal in that context. So in your context, Vyasadeva, as you can see here, is one of the Leela avatars. And there are 6 different kinds of avatars. So when Vyasadeva had written many scriptures, he has always proclaimed Lord Krishna as Purna Purushottam Krishna. He is a avatari. However, he has referred to Lord Shiva as Mahadev. He is, which in English, Srila Prabhupada has translated as, Dev is demigod, right? So in that context, we know, but Lord Shiva is very potent. We do not have the quality to refer to him any differently. Lord Shiva is worshipable Lord. He is the number one Vaishnava. He is Vaishnavayanam Yatha Shambhu, right? So Lord Shiva is the Vaishnava. So in our process, in our Gaudiya Parampara, we consider Lord Shiva as the number one Vaishnava. He is the topmost Vaishnava, who is always thinking about the glories of Lord Krishna. So in that sense, in that context, there is a difference. So, but he is no less, no high, but we have our Purna Purushottam Sri Krishna, as we discussed some time back about the Lord, how from Karnadakshay Vishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Kiradakshay Vishnu, all these universes are emanating, and how the marginal energy is being instilled, and so just to answer your question, Prabhu, Lord Shiva is our number one Vaishnava, but in the context of various different Puranas, which Vyasadev wrote, he has glorified it. He has glorified it. Because sometimes what happens is whenever you have a book, you try to portray a character, you tend to describe all the good qualities of this. So if you look at the book in isolation, he may have referred it. But if you look at the entire encyclopedia of Vyasadev's works, then you yourself would conclude that it may be confusing in the beginning, but you will conclude from the references. Because finally, when Vyasadeva, after writing so many Puranas and so many Vedas, got very sad, and finally he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, where he is describing the pastimes of the Lord. He realized this is the Amala Purana. Srimad Bhagavatam is Amala Purana. Mala means dust. So there is Amala, there is no dust in Srimad Bhagavatam. So when he wrote that, and if you read, you're also attending the weekday morning class, and that explains the importance and the purity of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is none other than the body of Krishna, with the canto 1 and 2 being the feet of the Krishna, and as you go up to the higher cantos up to 12, you get to the face. So in that context, I can only respond. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think that is something I wanted to respond. Is that okay, Ru?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Is that okay, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you.
So any other comments on Niranjan Prabhu's question from anyone?
Yeah, I have one comment on that. Same the similar lines of what you have told. Niranjan Prabhu, this what I wanted to let you know is that Srimad Bhagavatam, by writing, similarly, he was not happy, as we have read in this verse. He was still deluded. He was not happy after writing all these Vedas, Puranas, and he was not happy, Prabhuji. So, as Prabhuji has explained, even Jagannath Prabhu, Narada has asked him to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. So what the purpose is that he established the framework within which all these avatars are operating. They were all loose. He tied the loose ends, Prabhuji. That's how I think he tied all these loose ends, and he formed a framework, Prabhuji, within which we know the picture which Jagannath Prabhu has told. Now we know how they are structured. Physically also, like how where is Devi Ram, where is Mahesh Ram, where is all the, you see that. So he has given the complete structure to it, Prabhuji, because all these were, as we were all confused about these various avatars and their leelas and all. So he tied them in a framework. That's how also we can see Srimad Bhagavatam, in which where it's very clearly Mahadev is there. Mahadev is there. He as Vaishnava Yatu Shambhuna, the right is the paramount Vaishnava, always focused on Sankarshan. He always meditates on Sankarshan. That's why if you see Shivji's posture is always in a meditation position. No other position you'll see. So that is what one point I just wanted to add.
Yeah. Yes,
sorry if I repeated myself, but
no, that's true. So that's the framework actually. So where you have the Purusha avatar, the number one Purusha, Purna Purushottam Krishna, and the Vishnus, and Lord Shiva is here, Vyasadeva is here. So it's a multitude, because creating a universe is not a small thing. You need different departments. And Purna Purushottam Shri Krishna, the number one Purusha avatar, he has created all these different departments where different people have come at different times. And Brahmaji is actually the designer or architect, and the Vishnuji is the maintainer, and the Shivaji is the annihilator. So in that context, all of them have specific duties, and it's not just one person who can really do all that. So if you have this picture in mind, I think we will have some clarity. Okay, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So any other comments? I think if there is no other comments, we can end here. So we want to offer our respectful obeisances on the lotus feet of all Vaishnavas for joining this Saturday evening discussion. We have Radhastami coming up on Monday evening. There's big celebration from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. There is some Sus Prasadam as well. So please join. That's the day when which is celebrated as the appearance day of Srimati Radharani, which is coming up on the 13th of September, Monday, and big celebrations in our temple with nice outfit, everything from 7 p.m. onwards. So please come to the temple. A lot of services are there. And I'm going to end here by offering our obeisances. Vancha kalpataruvyaschcha kripa sindhu patitanam pavanebhyo
Namo Namaste.
Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai.
Name Jagannath Prabhu ki jai. Prabhuji, one point you can mention, Prabhuji, that's the only day where we can see Radharani's feet. So you can let that.
Yes. So
That and
Radharani is, as Prabhuji mentioned, Radharani is very is a pure devotee, and that's in terms of darshan. If you want to see the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani, and offer your respectful obeisances to the greatest devotee of the Lord, Srimati Radharani, that's the day and that's the evening when there will be a lot of darshan opportunities for you. Please come. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. We'll have our next Bhakti Vriksha next Saturday. With that, I'll end here. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.